In anime and manga, there are all sorts of themes or illusions that authors use and make. Things like the passage of time, the burden of greatness, or even the eternal debate of destiny versus free will. These are the type of things that can go unnoticed to any ordinary manga enjoyer, unless someone is actively looking for it. But these illusions are everywhere. Almost every theme or idea drawn from the real world and placed into a well-crafted story is deliberate, no matter how subtle. So what happens when someone alludes to one of the most popular themes of all time and at that so well to craft the most sneakily perfect art? Welcome to another Kingdom video. My name is Mikan, and today we're talking about how this story masterfully integrates the complex art of war, particularly in its latest conquest of Han. To begin with, it's important to know the ultimate goal of the art of war: to achieve victory through strategic means. In simple terms, avoiding prolonged or warfare altogether when possible. When it comes to Sun Tzu's art of war, there are 5 things that must always be consistently considered when cooking up strategy and tactics: moral law, heaven, earth, the commander, and both method and discipline. With Qin's quest being for unification, moral law becomes all the more important. It refers to ensuring that the people continue to be willing to follow their ruler, in this case Sei, without fear of danger. What Toe did in Nanyo with the help of Shin and Kyokai is a perfect example of this. Heaven is simple. Commanders must consider weather conditions like day or night, hot or cold, and any changing seasons. For example, during the Northern Xiao campaign, we saw 2 instances of this. Roboku used winter to scout out favorable terrain, knowing that there was no threat of attack from Qin until after the snow passed. In that same campaign, Kanki bided his time for a night battle, knowing that his soldiers operated better in those conditions. Onto Earth. In other words, terrain. Geographical knowledge is everything and goes beyond finding high ground or choosing between a plains and mountain battle. In the Hango campaign, Roboku makes great use of Earth. Knowing all the distances, open ground, and narrow passes within Hango helped him defeat Osen. First, he separated his most trusted army from the rest by using the mountains, knowing it was likely that Qin's strongest army, being Jotun's, would mirror them. It makes sense since most of Qin's intelligence would be on Roboku's main generals than any of the other commanders. This prevents Jotunwa from helping out Osen quickly. Placing Shibisho in the open, right in the center, allowed Xiao to take advantage of his brute strength. It's a smart move considering he wouldn't need the advantage of the enemy's side being exposed. He can use the Mobu method, wedge formation, and go. And Roboku, using narrow underground passages that only he knew about, helped him take Shin and Ohon off the board early. The commander principle is straightforward. A great commander must be wise as he is courageous. He must be sincere but also strict. I hate to say it, but while I'm making this video, I'm realizing that Roboku ticks most of these boxes. So does Todo. He is wise enough to spare the benevolent Nanyo ruler, courageous enough to lead the vanguard during the Battle of Eight Plains, sincere enough to candidly offer bloodless surrender to Princess Nate, and strict enough to threaten death to any of his soldiers, especially Rokyomi, that may ruin the chances of bloodless surrender. Lastly, method and discipline. This principle refers to the organization of the army, from the rank of its soldiers to logistics as in supply routes to financial control or control of resources. To efficiently manage all of this is the bare minimum of a successful military campaign. Osen did a pretty good job of this during the Western Xiao campaign. Not only did he successfully feint to get resources to Retsubi, but he also managed to create a new supply route to Gyo. Anyone would have panicked after being cut off from home, so Osen thought, why does food need to come from home? Masterclass. In terms of resources, Toe's strategy relying on aggressive pace was smart in hindsight, since a drawn-out battle would have used much more resources. Also, knowing whether or not his army is capable of pulling this off in the first place is the difference between victory and defeat, and so trusting the capabilities of his commanders is key. Now that we know the core principles, let's get more specific. Sun Tzu in his Art of War emphasizes the importance of a swift campaign. We already know that he warns against prolonged warfare, and that is why the shortest war is the goal. But why? Why is it bad to fight for so long? After all, Qin has managed to raise 200,000 fresh soldiers. Here's 3 reasons. 1. Soldiers can die. A state's resources will not last forever. Considering the formation of the family register is Qin's last resort and involves recruiting to the last man, that fact is all the more true. 2. Once an army's strength is exhausted, the possible strategies decrease drastically. And 3. Morale can greatly dampen when victory still hasn't arrived. During their pre-war briefing, Tow hits the core of the Art of War perfectly. What seemed confusing to others was clear to Tow. To bring down Han isn't simply to bring down one of the 7 warring states. It's to use that land, people, and money to fuel a newfound strength to once again challenge Raboku. Or as Sun Tzu would put it, to use the conquered foe to elevate our own strength. How do we go about doing this? Tow, being the wise general he is, treats all conquered citizens and soldiers kindly. He prioritized a quick, decisive victory against Rokugan to minimize financial strain, conflict on his own army, as well as the peril of surrounding cities that had supply lines cut off because of the war. At the end of the day, the ultimate goal is victory, not a legendary story of arduous battle. This is where Sun Tzu's introduction of this next concept fits in nicely. Supreme excellence. To strive for supreme excellence means to do everything in our power to win through indirect confrontation, or in Sun Tzu's words, break the enemy without fighting. In the Art of War, to be an elite general is to thwart the enemy's plans and then prevent the linking of their forces. Tow does exactly that. Han's original plan was to either have Nanyo fight off the Heishin unit alone, or send out Rokugan to join up with Nanyo and defend the castle against Tow and Shin. Using Kyokai's plan of psychological warfare, Tow thwarts Han's original plan. Deception is a key aspect of the Art of War. So by throwing in a sea of Qin flags with 100,000 old men and women, Tow was able to create the illusion that 300,000 fresh Qin soldiers were raining down on Han. But really, he cleverly undermined them. In Sun Tzu's words, this is what they would call attacking by stratagem. After taking Nanyo and using Shin's help to gain the trust of the people by treating them kindly, Tow completed the second level, required to be an elite general, to prevent the linking of the enemy forces. What happened in Nanyo resulted in 20,000 potential Han soldiers leaving the fray. Attacking the enemy in the plains is considered a lesser strategy, but what needs to be done will be done, as seen in the Battle of Ete Plains. Even then, Tow had a contingency plan for taking down Shinte without fighting, just like Nanyo. Besieging walled cities is also considered lesser, due to how much time, resources, and lives it takes. So he talked to Princess Nei, sowing the seeds of possible surrender in her mind from the very beginning. The Art of War describes a skilled leader being able to subdue the enemy, capture their cities, and overthrow their kingdom without lengthy operations, and without losing a man. What is Tow after conquering the royal capital of Shinte without any fighting, if not a skilled leader? The enemy successfully subdued, and the only major loss was on Han's side, their second greatest general dead. Nanyo and Shinte captured without anybody dying in a drawn-out siege, and with that, Han is overthrown. If we were to speak for the Tow agenda, all Tow stands are up big right now. He's number one. No general, bar Raboku, has mastered this Art of War like Tow has. Just because the Art of War outlines the ultimate goal to be no fighting doesn't mean that fighting will not occur. In Sun Tzu's eyes, the best fighters ensure their own safety first and then wait for opportunities to strike. An interesting thing is said, securing oneself against defeat is always within our own control. This should mean that technically, generals must never lose fights, right? Wrong. We must always remember the key to the Art of War will always be deception. It's a game of chess. Never let them know the next move. And it's cheesy, but always avoid the enemy's strengths and strike at their weaknesses. Putting it simply, using offensive tactics will signify an abundance of strength, and using defensive tactics suggests insufficient strength. It might have been done incidentally, but let's say it was on purpose. Tow only joined the heat of the battle when Yoko was sent to Shin's wing. Rokugan only pushed forward because he thought Tow was getting impatient. This deceit may have put Tow in temporary danger, but it was nothing but a minor advantage for Rokugan, who was enticed into an unfavorable position. This was already Rokugan's biggest mistake. Sending away his axe meant that Tow was able to fulfill the Art of War's requirement of ensuring superiority at the main point of attack, being where Rokugan was. And superiority can mean numbers, or in our case, commander quality. This meant that Rokugan had to engage Tow on unfavorable terms, and Tow's victory was pretty much ensured before the battle barely got started. It was Tow, Ryukoki, and Rokyomi all focused on Rokugan. That's GG. Tow was able to manipulate Rokugan and make him vulnerable. Again, it's not as though direct battle is bad. Rather, it is best supported by these endless series of indirect maneuvers and tactics. After all, in Sun Tzu's words, all warfare is based on deception, and the best victories are won, in the words of Sun Tzu once again, by conquering an enemy that is already defeated. Tow hits the mark on the three staples of deception: feigning inability, when attacking. He turned it up after isolating Recall Khan, inactivity when using his forces. Toh's main army was untouched while he went to speak to Princess Nei, and he used proximity to lure the enemy. It is honestly such a masterclass from Toh. If you made it to the end, thank you for tuning in. It would mean a lot to me if you guys left a like and a comment, share this video with a friend, and subscribe for more videos like this.